Monster, does your blasphemy know no bounds?
Alright, what's going on, guys? Lords of the Fallen was one of the most interesting game releases of the last year, as a new twist on the Souls-like genre, standing out significantly among others of its kind, for various reasons. Now, as someone that really enjoyed the game on launch, it has been incredible seeing just how much the game has transformed over the last year. But today, CI Games has requested that I share with you everything that's been going on with Lords of the Fallen in the background since that time, because in all actuality, this might be one of the best comebacks I've ever seen from a game. So after I break all this down for you and tell you everything new that's come to Lords of the Fallen, be sure to check it out using my unique link down in the description in the pinned comment, because this is a whole new game.
Prove yourself worthy of this gift.
When Lords of the Fallen released last year, it was a game that immediately stuck with me. I really enjoyed the lightweight feeling, the quick movement, and the immense variety in build crafting, and the core mechanic of world hopping between Axiom and Umbral was something I felt right at home with, given that my favorite game of all time is Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, a game with a world that's also divided between a light side and an intensely oppressive dark world, requiring puzzles to be completed on each different world that allows you to progress in the other. So even though I felt very comfortable with this system, there of course were a lot of Souls-like fans that didn't quite know what to make of it. But combining that with a fairly rocky launch for some people on consoles, and quite a bit of unforeseen glitches, and it's fair to see why so many people had such negative impressions of the game. Now, as someone who had literally no issues playing it through the first time on PC, I was very surprised to see all this, because when I finished the game, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I'd had in quite a long time. But through all that division, and the incredibly loud disapproval by many of the fans, CI Games were determined to give the people the game they expected, and the amount of work that has since been done is absolutely incredible to see. Now, at the time of making this video, Lords of the Fallen has received over 30 updates, diligently addressing each and every one of the community's concerns as best as possible, with the recent ones adding even more content to the game, such as built-in challenge runs, randomizers, and as of a few days ago, a fully fledged boss rush mode. So let's talk about these quite a bit. First of all, one of the biggest issues plaguing the game at launch was poor performance, with frame skips happening every now and then that could very easily get you killed in a tense boss fight, very poor frame rates in Umbral with all the different effects going on, and of course crashes, which are never okay. Now, in the past few days, I've been diving back into this game significantly and have had literally zero issues with performance whatsoever, keeping a stable frame rate the entire time I was playing, and of course no crashes. With that even applying to the Mance of the Hallowed Brothers, which suffered these frame dips the most on day one. Some other issues that the community found pretty problematic was the extreme enemy density throughout the levels, where every single room of a level felt like you were jumping into a crowd of enemies, which encouraged you to simply run past everything in order to get to the next checkpoint, which was one of my biggest complaints in my initial review. However, I can't speak for every level in the game, as the majority of my time spent playing recently has been on deathless randomized runs, but there were more than a handful of rooms where I remember getting ganked by the enemies, but after a lot of these updates, found that they were significantly more manageable. Now, that's not to say they made the game too easy or anything like that. There were definitely still some pretty infamous spots, but it didn't feel like my only option was to run through the level. Again, the word I like there is manageable. But another change that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people is an improvement to a lot of the sound design. One of the major ones being the parry sound, which a lot of people were upset with. And I'll play you a little comparison of the day one parry sound versus the new one. So you can easily tell there were some major improvements done there. The parry sound honestly used to be pretty non-existent, but now you have the sound of swords clashing, which really helps with the satisfaction of fighting. In addition to that, another sound that was requested to be changed was the weird coin-like ching that would play when you killed an enemy. It made the game sound like a casino whenever you were fighting a horde of mobs, which was most of the time. But now that sound has been removed entirely, and when you kill an enemy, there's no extra ding on top of just the sound of your weapon. But to simply stay on the things that people didn't like that have been changed wouldn't even be scratching the surface of all of the updates to Lords of the Fallen. There have been numerous community events going on since the game's release, and as you likely saw from the content roadmap that was shared, there were new quests involved to get special armor sets, entire new NPC quest lines, new spells for each of the magic types, increased boss difficulty, new abilities for boss weapons, and a lot more. Hopping back on this game after taking a break, I honestly couldn't keep up with all the new stuff. But the two biggest content drops have happened recently, and there's so much to explore here. The Master of Fate update was the biggest one that came out a little over a month ago. This update brought with it built-in challenge runs and randomizers, different aspects that put a twist on your new game. You can see from all the modifiers there that include randomized enemies, increased enemy density, withered healing, pre-upgraded loot that you find, randomized loot, the Iron Man modifier, which is a permadeath run. If you die in Umbral, it restarts your entire playthrough, although you do keep the items you found. And then multiple options for the amount of vestiges you want to have in your world, ranging from no vestiges at all, only a few at key locations, or all of them from the standard new game. Now, I had a lot of fun doing an Iron Man run with the randomized enemies because as soon as I started the game, I got trapped in a hallway with one of the abysses that shoots these lasers, and it was not a fun time at all. She dropped one of the puddles of thorns, and that was almost the end of the run right there. Now, if any of you made it to New Game Plus back when the game first released, the way it worked back then was that everything got harder, of course, but the only choice you had was there to be no vestiges, except for your main one at the hub. Now, a combination of a lot of these modifiers do a great job at turning the game into a sort of roguelite, since you get to keep all the items you had even if you lose. And the pre-upgraded loot modifier specifically is extremely helpful in running a new game if you had things you missed. And on top of that, it allows you to try out new weapons and builds without all the time required to farm for upgrade materials. What that did in that situation was instead of creating tension by fear of death, it created tension by fear of annoyance of having to run across the entire map to get back to where you were. And while I do think Mornstead has good level design, I grew tired of not having the vestiges very quickly. But now with these new modifiers, you get to have the New Game Plus experience that you want. And if you don't want those additional challenges and want to play New Game Plus to experience the things you missed, now that option is available to you. And on top of that, you don't have to mod your game in order to get these fun challenges, which I think is awesome and more games should do. But the recent surprise update that came out was the Clash of Champions update, which adds a Sekiro-style boss rush mode with various gauntlets, rewarding those who are able to take them on. At the vestiges, you can now do the simple echoes of battle, allowing you to refight bosses you've already beaten on that playthrough with your character as they are. So if you're at the end of the game leveled up a ton and have a fully fledged build and want to refight one of the early bosses, you can now do that without having to replay the entire game. And it's amazing practice for when you want to do that Iron Man challenge. Or if you want to test a build, this is the perfect place to do it. Since there's no consequence for dying, it's just simply for the fun of it. But for the real challenge, there are 6 crucibles to choose from. The Crucible of Faith, the Crucible of Blood, the Crucible of Fire, the Crucible of Light, the Crucible of Darkness, and then the Crucible of Lords, which is every main boss in the game. But of course, you do have to beat all the bosses on this list in order to unlock the crucibles, but each one will reward you with a very large amount of the shrine currencies, which unlock the secret armor sets and tinks, as well as unique tinks of their own. So not only are they the penultimate challenge you can take pride in, but they're actually worth doing, which I think is awesome. Now, regardless if you enjoyed Lords of the Fallen on day one or not, you really have to give credit where credit is due. These guys have been absolutely killing it, making this game into its purest form. And I think now with all of these updates, we are seeing what this game truly shines as. Now, back when I reviewed the game initially, I gave it an 8.5, since I didn't experience a lot of the issues that other people had and I wasn't aware of them at the time. But more importantly, I thoroughly enjoyed the game I played. I stuck myself in my room for about 3 days straight playing this game all the way through and did not get bored for a second. Of course, that was my subjective experience, and I know it may not be everybody's cup of tea, especially given the Umbral mechanic, but I think now if you're somebody that initially held off on playing the game, for whatever reason that may have been, now is the time to try it. The game is absolutely at its best, and the majority of the issues people had are now irrelevant. And the best thing about it is, Lords of the Fallen has just now launched on Game Pass, so if you have a Game Pass membership on Xbox or PC, then you can play the game for free. And I think think it is absolutely worth playing. What we have here is a really good Souls-like. My personal favorite that wasn't made by From Software, and if you are a Souls-like fan, then I think there's no excuse to not play it. Is it perfect? No. But is it a truly special experience? Absolutely. So check out Lords of the Fallen today at its absolute best by using my links down below and support the people that support us. With all that, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I will catch you in the next one.